Looking back to 1954, we can conclude that the first whispers of what would become the Lincoln family and US 30 Speedway were spoken. At the time, it looked like an ornery, rambunctious 16-year-old with a love for auto racing. Duane Lincoln, who was known as Abe to everyone, was that 16-year-old. Abe would remove the back seat of his car, load up his friends, and head to Arlington, Nebraska, and go to the races. During intermission and after the races, they would pick up pop bottles, filling up the missing back seat area. Abe and friends would cash them in, hoping to have fuel money and admission to next week's races. Abe knew that where there was a will, there was a way. He would prove that to Nebraska and the dirt track community for the next 43 years. Fresh out of high school, Abe had his own race car, a number 15 Ford Coup. One fateful race night at the David City racetrack, Abe crashed on the front stretch. He didn't realize in the moment that his future wife, Louise Samek, who was known to everyone as Sam, was sitting in the grandstands at her very first race. Sam was sitting in the front row for Abe's wreck. At the time, women were not allowed to be in the pits. The pair reconnected at a dance a few weeks later and then entered marriage December 2nd, 1961. The Lincolns had begun. Abe always dreamed big. Big Abe's dreams meant a lot of planning and work for the budding Lincoln family. They welcomed a daughter, Mary, in 1962, Nancy in 1965. Abe promoted Battle of the Bands in Columbus, as well as various dances and shows for local bands. Louise worked as an accountant while raising her young family and chasing Abe's dreams. Abe's love of promoting and his passion for all things racing led the Lincolns to purchase Skylark Racetrack in the early 1970s. The Lincoln family was right on track, adding their last daughter Debbie in 1971. With all 4 kids in tow, Abe was handed the keys to Skylark. Once the ink was dry, they were notified that the grandstands were actually in the process of being condemned. They salvaged what they could, using a dirt mound as a base for seating. Skylark saw races and dirt bike races under the Lincoln reign. Unfortunately, Skylark was a lemon when the Lincolns took over, and no amount of sugar could fix it. Taking what they'd learned, Sam and Abe knew they'd just have to start from scratch. I mean beans. This is also when the perfect grandstand idea was born. Grandstands that couldn't collapse and your child couldn't fall through the structure. You'd never lose your purse or your popcorn. Abe's Rite Aid was Abe's next business venture in the mid-1970s. Located across the alley from their home, a full-service station kept Sam and Abe as prominent business leaders in the community. Abe was also back behind the wheel of a number 15. Abe was racing a Dodge Charger in the IMCA State Fair circuit. Abe's Rite Aid made enough money to buy a piece of land, a bean field that we all know today as US 30 Speedway. Abe passed August 24, 1997. He was involved in a confrontation with a driver who was in the process of being kicked out of the facility, and Abe was met with his final heart attack. The red flag was thrown on the Speedway as the ambulance crew raced to assist Abe. Time froze. Abe was transported to the hospital. Sam knew better than to send the crowd and drivers home and issue rain-out tickets. Abe would have thrown a fit. Sam and family somehow managed to finish heat races, send everyone home for double features next week, and even with the death in the family, those races were run as scheduled. Abe's funeral was held at home at US 30 Speedway. He's buried in Roselawn Memorial Cemetery in Columbus, Nebraska. The family continued without their fearless dreamer, vowing to keep Abe's dream alive.